Hello there, YouTube gamers. This is going to be a short little, silly little video just displaying some images I made years ago in my youth. This isn't taking away from any of my other silly little YouTube projects, so to the very few people watching this who may be concerned, don't worry. My other stuff is on the way. This is just a silly little video I've been wanting to make for a little bit. But yeah, no. When I was about 15 years old, which is like a little over 5 years, almost 6 years ago, 6 years ago now, I got into a little hobby for a brief period of time where I would make PolCompBall Comics. And if you don't know what PolCompBall is, it's short for Political Compass Ball, and it's similar to Country Ball, but instead of the balls representing nation-states or countries, they represent political ideologies. And I know, it's just a fascinating concept. It's so genius that people would spend their times making these things. But, a little after COVID hit, when I was about 15 years old, I got into a little hobby of making these comics. None of them were ever good, because I made them on my phone, and I would draw with my phone, and I didn't take too much care into having them be edited incredibly well. But I made a few silly little comics, and I'm just going to display them to you today. I might even narrate them for you a little bit today. Like, here, well, I'll of course be explaining them because nobody other than somebody as depraved and stupid as me would understand what any of these things are on screen. But, like, here you have, for instance, this is a geo-anarchism, a Georgist anarchism political compass ball comic. And you see, little geo-anarchism ball is going, hey guys, what? And then he walks in on a conversation between anarcho-capitalism and Georgism. And you know what anarcho-capitalism says? He says, and then he said to me, Georgism and anarchism are compatible. And Georgism responded, or well, actually, that's geo-libertarianism, not Georgism. If you know the difference between the balls, like I do. Like, if you're a nerd, like me. But geo-libertarianism is still not anarchist. And he responds, what an idiot. Geo-anarchism, of course, cries. And he says, fucking land barons, as he runs away crying, because that's what an anarchist Georgist might say. I don't know. You may or may not be able to tell from the very few political compass ball comics that I have in my album, but at the time that I was most into political compass ball, and when I was actively participating in making comics, I had a particular affinity for Georgism. Henry George was my Jesus Christ. He's not anymore. Not anymore, and that's important. Murray Rothbard isn't my Jesus Christ either. I just quite like him. Jesus is my Jesus Christ. But here we have a Georgism family photo. And just isn't this beautiful? You have Georgism up there. He's a father. Or maybe a mother. I don't know. Their gender's ambiguous. They're also a furry. Because in classical Georgist advertising, in classical Georgist propaganda, there was a phrase called, "Can you see the cat?" And I'm not going to go through the trouble of explaining to you precisely what that means in their political messaging. It has to do with landlords being shitty or something. I can't even remember exactly. But it has to do with something like that. Like, can you see the real economic problem? The landowners? Something like that. But here you got Georgism, and look at all these kids they have. To the left there, you got geo-syndicalism, Georgist syndicalism, with their nice little syndicalist eye patch, and they're quite frustrated that their father's a furry. You also got geo-anarchism right there. Then you got geo-libertarianism in the middle. You even got geo-mutualism, even further left than geo-anarchism. And you got social Georgism. For your more typical Georgists who aren't, in the libertarian space, for some reason, a lot of Georgists tend to be at least adjacent to libertarianism, and that's probably due to the one tax thing. Having one tax is probably preferable and less bureaucratic than having loads of taxes. But whatever. This is a Georgist family photo. Oh, and then here, this is one of my classics. This is a classic. This is Mother Anarchy. And, I posted these to Reddit originally, so you'd be scrolling through Reddit, just scrolling on through Reddit, And then you'd be like, whoa, you'd be met with Mother Anarchy Ball. And she'd say, hey, stop scrolling. And you know what then she would say? She would say, okay, now that I've got your attention, want to overthrow the government or something. Now, isn't that just cute? Isn't that just cute? Let's just go ahead and scroll past that one. Oh, this is one of my personal favorites. In addition to having an affinity for Georgism at the time, I was really big into the concept of libertarian unity. Not really anymore. I don't think it's really practically feasible. I think it's sort of a, I don't know. I don't want to say pipe dream, but it's just it's. I could make a video essay on this topic once I start making video essays on a separate channel. This will never be a nerd channel in that way. But like, you know, this is just meant to demonstrate the conflicts between the primary branches of what you could call libertarianism or anarchism or whatever. You know, you see, you got libertarianism ball, or the ball representing the libertarian direction on whatever political test is on the internet. I forget. And he's going, you know, he's throwing a LibertyCon. He's going, welcome, libertarians, welcome, fellow libertarians. And you see, all these libertarians can't agree that the other libertarians are, in fact, libertarians and should be present there. You know, if I can, you know, I should be able to rattle off the names of pretty much most of these guys. You know, you on the top left there, you got black anarchism. To the right, you got libertarian Marxism. To the right of that, I think that's democratic confederalism. Right below him, I don't actually know. I don't think that's anarcho-syndicalism. It might be. But then to the left of them, you know, you got mutualism. Then to the left of that, you got anarcho-communism. In the middle, you got Stenerism, Sternerite egoism, you know. Pretty sweet. Then, you know, on the right, you got classical liberalism, Austro-libertarianism, objectivism. Quite funny, because Ayn Rand actually said she would never vote for somebody who called themselves a libertarian, and she rejected the term libertarian. That's a whole topic that doesn't even necessarily need to be relevant for this video. Then, you know, on the bottom left of the right group, you got the minarchist. Then, you know, to the right of them, you got a geo-libertarian, which, interestingly enough, in a lot of circles, a geo-libertarian or like a Georgist libertarian guy, in some circles, they would go more by left libertarian than right libertarian. But I think that's generally more of a consequence of libertarianism being thought of contextually as a more right-wing thing or as a thing which is necessarily capitalistic or market. But if you start drawing in a broader conception of libertarianism, which would include your, you know, like your libertarian communists, your council communists, your anarcho-syndicalists, once you start including those guys, it seems a little more natural to say that geo-libertarians are on the right side of the libertarian aisle. When you're talking about, like, left libertarians as just, like, left Rothbardians and geo-libertarians and bleeding heart libertarians, I mean, sure, they're left of Hoppe and Ron Paul and, you know, that whole swarm of people. But they're not left of the total aisle of libertarian ideology. That's just a... what the hell? My previous recording kind of got cut off. I'm not sure what happened. But I suppose I could just go through the rest of my PolCompBall Comics now. Here we got this one's a classic, you know. This one's, you know, I can't show that silly little symbol on the little PolCompBall over to the right, but that represents a certain mustached man, I'm sure you may be able to understand, except they are a homosexual variant of that ideology. Whereas to the left, you have a variety of anarchists, which may or may not be more traditional in that regard. I do understand that a lot of Christian anarchists are actually pro-LGBT, but, you know, you got your anarcho-bundle-of-sticks-ism up there on the left, you got your Hoppianism in the top right, then you got your national anarchism, then your anarcho-conservatism, then Christian anarchism, and, you know, they could, you know, yeah. Then, you know, here you got, this one's a classic. You know what? And then here, you've got arguably what is my most and least successful PolCompBall comic of all time. You know, you've got National Bolshevism there, and they're saying, they're kind of harassing what they believe to be pink capitalism, and they use a word I kind of had to cut out there. And but then pink capitalism turns around, and National Bolshevism realizes that's not pink capitalism, that's pink Hoppietism. Then pink Hoppietism's boyfriend, Pinochetism, comes in, and they freaking destroy National Bolshevism. And, you know, the reason I say this is my most and least successful one of all time is because this got deleted for quality reasons, and then somebody remastered it and made a much better version. But I actually can't find it anymore, so I'm not going to show it here. But, yeah, that was my art, guys. I hope you freaking enjoyed.